Tree Country 1330 WTRE. It's 8:36. We've got the fire chief in this morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Isn't it beautiful out?
It is a beautiful morning out.
I feel like I'm high on spring today.
Yeah.
That's how I can explain it.
Yeah, last time we met, it was cold and
gross.
And kind of nasty. So, yeah.
Yeah, we've made progress.
Right. We have turned the corner, so to speak.
Spring is here.
It's sprung.
Summer is on its way.
It can slow down.
It can slow down just a little bit.
Yeah. But no, it's great. You can drive around with the windows down. All sorts of good stuff.
That's right. It's getting close to Jeep weather.
It is.
It's close.
It's almost time. Put the top down and go cruising.
That's right. It will be here soon.
It will be.
With that weather comes lots of safety issues, right?
Absolutely, especially with all the construction that is getting ready to occur and everything else. You do not want to cruise on the interstate.
And I told the mayor this morning I quit I-74. I just quit
bad,
it.
Bad place, yeah.
Yeah, I just quit.
Unfortunately, it's going to be you and thousands of others of your friends doing the same thing. So.
And I'm not advocating anyone else to quit it.
Yeah,
No.
yeah.
No.
Everybody else stay on the interstate.
Yeah.
421 for Emily.
There's a lot of construction out there.
There is a lot of construction, and it's only going to unfortunately get worse. It has been. You can tell temperatures are warming up. Last week we had a horrendous, just mentally and physically taxing week with calls, and it's unsurprising as it does happen when the weather gets warmer. A lot of those were nothing really technically to do with weather, but it always seems that there's this just incidental connection between warming up and unfortunately tragic or bad things happening. So we welcome the warm weather. We do not welcome the physically and mentally taxing calls in 1 week. If we can push those out and separate those a little bit, it'd be great. Yeah, absolutely.
Last week was rough for the entire county. And
absolutely.
How, as a department, because last week it was like just one after another.
Right.
How, as a department, do you guys handle, taking that in and processing it?
So part of it is we're a little bit of goodness is that working 24-hour shifts, we don't have the same people coming back the next day most of the time. Now, if they work overtime or something like that, then obviously they do. There's always those little caveats. But most of the time they get 24 hours, 48 hours to decompress. Unfortunately, one of the days was just several high-impact calls on the same shift. So, it's checking in with each other. It's making sure everybody is okay. It's following up and getting information of how the victim or victims were that we treated or helped transport, so that we get closure. Otherwise, a lot of times it's just an open door that's left of 15, 20 minutes, maybe upwards of an hour we spend with somebody or spend on the scene, and then to go back to the station and do it again. And a lot of times we never see what the end result is. Whether it be good or bad, it still provides a bit of closure for us to know that we did what we could, and here's what happened, versus we did what we could and you just never know. So that is one of the things that we work with our partners in hospitals, are from Indianapolis local and our local EMS and those individuals to get or in law enforcement that maybe does a follow-up investigation and get kind of information that provides us a closure, provides us a sense of like, okay, there's what we did and this is how we're...
You get the outcome.
Right, absolutely. And that's critical. And then, the mind needs time to process things that it's seen. And so, making sure everybody is okay in the short term, and then those long-term follow-ups, that 48 hours, that next week follow-up of, hey, just check on everybody, make sure they're okay. Whether they compartmentalize it, whether they, kind of feel it more empathetically, everybody kind of does that differently. So just kind of, putting that out there, and then, offering one-on-one support or offering support through other professionals if necessary to, kind of get some longer term things set up. So while it is our job to respond to those, everybody has a breaking point. Everybody has a point where, wow, that's a lot.
Yeah, you're still human beings. I think
Correct.
that is like a very important piece to this.
Absolutely. And we suffer the same, and are exposed to the same mental health things and issues and all those things that come with that everybody suffers. We all do, because we are human. We are people. Just because we choose to do this line of work doesn't mean that we're immune to that, or we have a higher tolerance, or whatever. It's the resilience levels are different with everybody, whether you're an emergency responder or not. And so trying to keeping track of that, and even checking on those that, if it wasn't for bystanders, it wasn't for 911 callers, it wasn't for people to be around and doing that. And unfortunately, seeing those things, we wouldn't. We want to check on them as well, because we don't even know what they were necessarily exposed to, because sometimes they see things worse than us. They see the event occur, where we show up after the fact.
May is Mental Health Awareness Month, but we've talked about this a lot, and just the way the culture has changed in the fire and police kind of world. It used to not be talked about. Absolutely.
And it's unfortunate that one of the main drivers of that is the number of suicides of public safety professionals. It no longer can be ignored as just a thing. And so, unfortunately, that had to occur for more awareness to be brought. But like anything, and we are a reactive profession, we try not to be, and so it's not, but historically, something bad happens, you call 911, we come. We have now, in for law enforcement, EMS, community, integrated mental health, or community, even like community paramedicine and mobile integrated health, and getting nurse practitioners and getting people out before people get terribly bad. We've all kind of taken this upstream prevention approach to, hey, can we keep this or stop this from happening before it even occurs? And so a lot of light has been shined. There's a lot more research, a lot more programs available, both clinically and just informationally, to emergency services providers, to basically try to destigmatize mental health, destigmatize you don't have to have the hero syndrome. You don't have to have a bravado or anything about that. Like, these calls can bother you, and it's okay. Just sort of like the whole "it's okay to cry" thing for men a long time ago, that kind of occurred, of like, it doesn't show us, it's not a sign of weakness. Really trying to transform that narrative into it's a sign of strength. And so that's one of the reasons when we, designed our firehouse, we put in a quiet room. We have individual bunks for those individuals to decompress if they need to, especially when and we haven't had kids calls. These were all adults, but still, just one thing after another. Those and have and are glad to see the families come in afterwards and hug the kids and things like that, because you never know. And I mean, if it sends the big lesson of life is precious, and make the most of it that you can. And so, there always are lessons to be learned in that. And it is having that awareness that, hey, don't dog on, or it's not, your first responders aren't less of people because they cry, because they have mental health issues, because whatever, they're suffering the same things. They go through the same problems that every normal person goes through. And we don't, give them a hard time. We shouldn't do this. And most of the hard time is not given by others. It's given by ourselves and our peers.
Well, we do appreciate all the hard work. I know last week was a tough one, and
Absolutely.
Appreciate the department, all of our frontline workers,
appreciate
and
that.
We've made it through.
Yes,
so now
we did, and so hopefully there's some brighter times ahead, both figuratively and literally. So, but it is urging caution, and for those that are, you're worried about, reach out to them, check on them. There are multiple resources available. I mean, I think that we as the community try to do a good job to get our mental health resources out and made available, but I think we always just fall short. There is a lot more than what most people think. And so, if you're curious, just call. The state has a good 211. A lot of those treatment centers, things that are available, are listed in the state 211 system. If it is a mental health crisis that is an emergency, you can always dial 911, and we have obviously resources through the Decatur County CIT, as well as law enforcement will respond, and EMS will respond as well. And if all else fails, if you can get them to go to the emergency room, that's a start. It's better than the alternative. So, as the weather does get nicer, doesn't necessarily we're going to get sun, so we're going to get, that vitamin D that everybody needs, and hopefully work out of seasonal depression. But for some, that's not going to be. So the imperative thing is check on your friends, check on your neighbors, check on your family, and make sure that, they are okay. And if you feel something's off, it probably is. And, it might upset them, but you're doing it from a place of caring, and ultimately you could save a life.
In the end, it's the right thing to do. So.
Absolutely.
Very
Absolutely.
Good.
So we appreciate all of our partners in emergency services that went through the same thing. It's, we're not alone in this, and tough weeks kind of bring us together a little bit more, and really make the job that we do worth it in a way to do that. We've had most of them that were successful outcomes, so that's something not to overlook either.
We had 2 people go missing last week.
Yes.
And so, let's talk about that safety piece a little bit, because families, you're in and out, and you may not always see exactly what's happening with a loved one.
Right.
What advice do you have for people, like maybe they're aging, we maybe have some dementia, we've got some mind changes going on, but trying to keep that family member safe is a priority?
Right now it's obviously there is with the advent of GPS tags and location devices, people have sewn those into clothes. People have put those in shoes, because and learn about the diseases. Go with those if you can. Go with those family members to doctor's appointments. When we look at dementia and things like that, sometimes that starts as what's just coined as sundowners, and they'll be normal 20 out of 24 hours or 18 hours out of the day, but there's that short time period where things aren't clicking, and you might it's something off. If your instinct is something's wrong, it probably is. Especially for those loved ones who do live alone. And we see it time and time again that, as you get older, you don't want to lose your independence. You don't want to lose that. And there's a sometimes fight, both physical and just verbally, about losing that independence and what we're doing. But we're trying to keep people safe because, again, as their mind goes through those changes, they're not going to know where they're at. They're not going to, they may know their name. And I think one of the things that, and it's somewhat fascinating as a medical provider, but it's also, you see it is there'll be times of lucidity, and then all of a sudden there's times of senility. Mm-hmm. And it can be in the same conversation. It can be in the same sentence. And it's picking up on those things. And it's, what is just a mess up of, hey, we all do it, and we have that time. And then what is something of, hey, this is a sign of something more. In one of our cases, cameras were a huge benefit, not only at the house, but also neighbors and things like that. And our community had a wonderful response in checking those and looking and reporting and going out and searching themselves, for this individual, which is a great thing. But we were able to capture them on doorbell cameras and videos walking by the house, just from a motion sense point of view, that helped to pinpoint where we needed to search. And so I think, that was one of those things that is great. And this individual had cameras in the house and everything else like that, but it also made them, they also know that they're there. And again, so do they want to be watched, and it's having tough conversations, but knowing that sometimes those conversations aren't necessarily being processed.
The reasonability in folks that are starting to experience that is just, it's gone most of the time.
Absolutely. And it is a sign and symptom of aging. And I think you have to use and seek medical advice to say what is the normal processes of aging and what is something that's more. Because, once it starts, it's not going to stop. We can slow it down. There's, medications. If, some people won't take medications though either. That becomes a thing. But we can slow it down with medication, but once it starts, we can't stop it. And we don't want to see something bad happen to somebody or something tragic happen to a family when it can be prevented. And they're unpopular decisions. That this is an easy topic to talk about in Armchair Quarterback. And those listening, I do understand the complexities that are with that.
Absolutely.
And as a medical provider, you've had to have those tough conversations. We've had to have those tough conversations as well. And that's why we have tools and people and things in place to search and do that. And 4 hours about total is a long time. And luckily the weather was nice. But if we would have had extreme heat, extreme cold, that adds another layer of complexity to that, and really another layer of concern and urgency. And so, again, if a facility's not possible, caretakers, living in the home or doing things like that is a way to help, potentially keep the independence, keep the familiarity of the home, because that's one of the big things is everything that's familiar, or we regress back to things that were used to be familiar. I working in EMS, several of the Alzheimer's dementia units that we go to, they would have trinkets from their childhood, older pictures, and things that would help remind them of
it gives them a trigger.
Yes, who they are, where they are. And so I understand that familiarity piece. So can you have, caretakers, home aides, adult sitters? Not everybody needs an inpatient facility. But sometimes we have to have something between living alone and, an inpatient facility. And what does that look like? And it is a lot, both mentally and physically as well, to care for an aging or a medically necessary loved one. And so reach out for help. There's, we have people in our community and resources that that's what they do. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure you guys have those resources listed at the clinic as well. And, it's not about losing freedom. It's trying to keep people safe and trying to prevent something bad from happening. And it's the same exact thing, that we talk about with, kids who are on the spectrum. More those kids that are more severe on the spectrum that will sometimes wander away and sometimes have those, they have affinity to water. They have, things that we're taught and how do we identify those. And, they have Project Lifeline bracelets if they choose to do that program, which is a GPS kind of tracking thing that we can do to do that. But, a lot of people have cell phones now, or, the air tags or some type of other GPS monitoring type of thing. While it may, seem to restrict their freedom, somebody has to keep an eye on it.
It's keeping their safety.
Right. And it's a way to keep the eye on them without necessarily overburdening them either. And so, but I think the big thing, and even for me as a young provider and coming up, is just the moments of senility with the moments of normalcy, and how quickly that can change, and knowing that, okay, this isn't right, this is some type of a behavioral change that we need to address, because they'll know they're at home one minute and know they're not the next. And in that next moment, what do they do? And how far do they get, or where do they go before they realize, oh, I'm not in the right place? And so, educating, neighbors as well of, hey, if you see, please call. If you can't get a hold of us, call somebody before maybe it gets too far. So there's things to do, and it's nothing to be ashamed of. It is not, it's not armchair quarterbacking any one situation. it literally is just things to help keep people safe.
Absolutely.
When we see it all the time versus maybe a family that's just dealing with it and they feel like they're siloed, they feel like they don't. Call the police department, call the fire department, call us. We either can get you resources or help you line you up with resources, or we can just give you some of our tips, tricks that we have seen over the years in doing these things. And being on foot is a lot easier than being on a car. We have ways to track both, but you just can't get as far.
Right.
And so, again, the community came out with great support. We had people, driving down. It was a dead end, but driving down and, offering assistance, offering help, going out and searching, asking where to search. So, that always helps. Many eyes make light work in that situation when that's what we really need. But no, the cameras came in as a huge thing of at least kind of helping identify us. There was always time lag, but
at least give you somewhat of an idea.
Absolutely. In trying to identify people on foot and identify people driving, we gave them an area to go to that we know if you're walking, you can't make it. It's almost impossible unless you're just running everywhere that you can't make it further than X because you were in this area. So there are lots of, creative ideas and reach, there's a lot of support groups too. This is one of those things that that a lot of people go through, and a lot of people probably feel isolated and alone in that, and they're not.
Not at all.
And while social media has its downfalls, if you can hook up with a support group or, and even remain anonymous if you want, but others that are going through this, other family members that are going through these trials and tribulations, I feel like that, that always helps. You have a community. And they might have ideas that they've just, created on their own and come up with that we don't even have, and find like, oh, that's interesting because they've lived it. You have to really connect with somebody who's lived it to fully understand, I think, and appreciate the concern and the worry and the drive to, preserve freedom yet keep people safe.
And that's what it's all about, is safety.
Absolutely.
I think as a community, we've done a great job supporting that as well. So
for sure, absolutely, yes, and everybody is, this community is. Listens to public safety, heeds our warnings, and is in general a very public safety positive and pro community that it shines in times like this. We were able to locate her, reunite her, and that's always a good feeling for everybody, again, because we have that closure, and we appreciate the community's support in looking and getting that done. And it could have been any one of them to locate her, depending on any time of that. So yeah, and with that warmer weather, more people are going to be out. Kids are going to be playing. School's going to, wrapping up. I know there's several kids I heard like with countdowns of how much is, you have to be aware, because this is a very high traffic, high volume area. When the weather's nice, we've got bikes, scooters, e-bikes. The modes of transportation are a many.
They are. And with all the construction going on, I think a lot of the side streets will be utilized much more than they are now. Absolutely.
We're, and you're going to see, we have a lot of people crossing State Road 3, especially at Carver. Just the other day, there was, a juvenile on a scooter trying to get across, and the scooter wasn't moving very, very quickly, and it was an e-scooter, but he was having to give it a little bit of oomph to get it across. And, the what-ifer in me, like, worries about that, because that is not a place to do that. So, it's everybody has to use caution, because, it's just like, look out, motorcycles are everywhere. Motorcycles want you to pay attention to them. We also want the motorcycles to pay attention to their surroundings as well. Just like if your kids are on scooters or bikes, they need to pay attention to their surroundings much as everybody else needs to pay attention. It takes two to do that, because if one misses, then the other one hopefully will catch it. But yes, our side streets, especially with the 421 South closure coming in May, our side streets are going to be utilized a lot more. The interstate is going to be, we're going to have other state roads utilized, but it's going to push everything to local streets, local roads, local highways. and if you are an I-74 traveler, give yourself time, give yourself space. As we go to one lane each way, it is going to, cause an impact. And there's already been several, property damage crashes of people crashing into construction equipment or, just not paying attention and minor rear enders. Luckily we have not had a serious injury crash. But the conditions are ripe for that, I guess you could say, unfortunately. And we're pledged to working with the state. We've met with all of the contractors on there, and they have met with public safety. We have held meetings. We will continue to hold meetings, which is good because we're proactively at least trying to work towards being on the same page. We can't fix and we can't change the way their schedule is and the one lane closures, but we can know where they're at, what purpose they're in, how the best access is in to get there so that we can minimize our response times.
You're able to be proactive, and that's the nice thing with the planning.
Absolutely, and at least know where the bottlenecks are going to be as they replace bridges and overpasses and do a lot of work. And it'll be great when it's done in 3 years, but it's just the 3 years to get there to do it. And those traveling on 421, be cautious. 421 and the curves just north of the Orchard and further north of that, I guess, north of Adams there, they're tricky. People that don't pay attention always seem to end up in the ravine and against a tree. Unfortunately, it seems like just be aware. Motorcyclers are going to be out. That's a good, somewhat curvy, windy road for motorcyclers. Just pay attention. Put the phone down and pay attention.
Be smart.
Yeah, absolutely. You can listen to your music, but again, at a level that you can hear things around you. Especially there because, again, nice weather brings motorcycles, and that is just one thing that we always want to be concerned about because they don't have the impact of a car surrounding them to help, in a crash. It's just
there's not a lot of protection.
No,
there.
Unfortunately not. Unfortunately not. So,
well,
yeah.
Any other news from the firehouse?
That's it. No.
That's it. All right.
Yeah.
We've had plenty of news recently.
It's been busy. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So we'll take a slow news day once in a while for sure.
All right. Thanks so much for being in with us this morning.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's 9:04 on Tree